In the next 12 to 24 months, Monmouth County is going to look and feel very different. And honestly, a lot of people don't realize just how much is changing here right now. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the biggest developments happening across Monmouth County, major projects that could impact real estate, new construction communities, and some of the things happening here that make this area such a great place to live. If you're new to my channel, I'm Melissa DeSantis. I'm a broker here in Monmouth County, and I've been selling real estate here for years. I live here myself, and on this channel, I talk about everything related to living in Monmouth County, New Jersey. I'm not here to sugarcoat things or sell you hype. My goal is to give you an honest picture of what's actually happening in these towns. So let's jump in. Before we get into all the developments here, what I want you to understand is Monmouth County is not standing still. Prices are up and demand is still very strong. But this video isn't really about market statistics. It's about what's driving the momentum behind the scenes. We're talking about a $1 billion Netflix studio under construction right here in Monmouth County. A brand new outdoor concert venue opening in Freehold. New construction communities in Manalapan, Marlboro, and Freehold that are selling quickly. And a local event scene that surprises a lot of people who haven't spent much time here. I've lived and worked in this market for a long time. I moved to Manalapan back in 2010 because I wanted the schools, the community, and the lifestyle for my twins, Nick and Gabby. So when I talk about these towns, I'm talking about them both professionally and personally, because choosing a town here isn't just about buying a house. You're choosing how you want your everyday life to feel. And that's exactly what this video is about. Let's get started with probably the biggest development story happening in Monmouth County right now. And honestly, one of the biggest economic stories in New Jersey, Netflix. Yes, that Netflix. They're building a massive film studio campus on nearly 300 acres across Eatontown and Oceanport on the former Fort Monmouth property. Netflix purchased the site for about $55 million. Construction on the first phase is already moving forward, and the early plans include multiple sound stages, production space, and a development that could eventually become one of the largest studio campuses on the East Coast. Now, here's why I think buyers should actually pay attention to this. This is not just a movie story. This is a job story. It's a housing story, and long-term, it's a lifestyle and economic growth story. We're talking about thousands of construction jobs, over 1,500 projected permanent jobs, and a major company making a long-term investment right here in Monmouth County. New Jersey itself also tied hundreds of millions of dollars in tax incentives to this project. So this isn't some quick headline that disappears next year. This is a long-term play. I would absolutely be paying attention to towns like Eatontown, Oceanport, Long Branch, and some surrounding communities too. Because when you bring a project like this into an area, housing tends to follow. Production workers, creative, professionals, support staff, executive, vendors, people working around the ecosystem, that grows around a project like this. And that demand usually doesn't show up overnight, but markets often start reacting long before everything is fully built. And if you're a seller or a homeowner in some of these nearby towns, this is one of those developments worth watching. Historically, when you see large-scale projects bringing long-term jobs, investment, and visibility into an area, it can create stronger buyer interest over time, especially in communities that already offer good transportation, lifestyle amenities, and housing options. Now, does that mean that everybody should run out and buy a house tomorrow because of Netflix? No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're already considering Monmouth County, especially these areas, this is definitely something I would want on my radar. Now, speaking of big changes happening in the county, this next one matters whether you're buying a home, you already live here, or honestly just somebody who has family in the area. And that is RWJ Barnabas Health. They are building a brand new specialty and cancer center at the Vogue Medical Campus in Tenton Falls. And this is not your typical medical office building. This is a major healthcare investment for Monmouth County. The facility is being designed in partnership with Rutgers Cancer Institute, which is one of the most respected oncology programs in the country. And And that I can tell you firsthand because they literally saved my dad's life. This facility is expected to open later this year. They're talking same-day surgery, advanced imaging, precision medicine, clinical trials, specialized cancer treatment, all right here in Monmouth County. And if you've ever had to drive into New Brunswick, into New York City, or further north for specialized care, you probably understand why this is a pretty big deal. But here's where it gets even bigger. This is only phase 1. Phase 2 involves a proposed full acute care hospital on the same site near the Parkway. So we're talking about a healthcare campus that could significantly change access to medical care in this part of the county. Now, to be fair, projects of this size don't come without trade-offs. You're likely looking at more traffic around the corridor during construction and after opening. That's just reality. But after all, having stronger healthcare infrastructure close to home is something a lot of buyers care about, especially relocation buyers, families, and active adult buyers. And I think this is one of those projects that's easy to underestimate until you actually think about what it means for day-to-day life. All right, now let's talk about one I am genuinely excited about because this directly impacts the communities I work in every single day. Freehold is getting a brand new outdoor concert venue called Park Stage. And honestly, I think this one surprised a lot of people. It's a collaboration between the Count Basie Center and Monmouth County Tourism, and it's opening at the East Freehold Park Showgrounds. This is the same location where the county fair happens every summer. And this isn't some tiny local stage setup. We're talking national acts, comedy, VIP areas, pit seating, large general admission space, free parking, real concert venue energy. The vision is to create a long-term summer destination in Freehold. From a community perspective, I think that's exciting. And from a real estate perspective, I think buyers pay attention to this kind of thing more than people realize. People want to know that a community is evolving. They want lifestyle, they want activities, they want places where there is actually something happening beyond just houses and shopping centers. But now let's be realistic for a minute. Large venues mean traffic. Event nights are going to mean heavier traffics around routes 9, 18, even 33 and 34, especially if you live closer to the showgrounds. That's just part of the package. But overall, most people I've talked to see this as a positive. And if you're considering Freehold Township, I think it's another sign of a community that is continuing to grow and invest in itself. And while we're talking about Freehold, let's talk about the Freehold Raceway property. The Raceway closed at the end of 2024 after more than 200 years. And for a lot of longtime locals, that was emotional. This was the nation's oldest half-mile harness racing track. There's history here. Now the property has been acquired by a development group with a preliminary vision that includes things like retail restaurants, potentially a boutique hotel, walkable spaces, social gathering areas. And before the internet runs with headlines, I want to be very clear here. Right now, there is no confirmed construction timeline. The project is still in early planning conversations, and I think that's important context because hype tends to move faster than facts on projects like this. But here's my take. A 58-acre redevelopment opportunity in one of the most central locations in Monmouth County, that's significant. And it's worth watching. If the long-term vision actually comes together over the next several years, it could become a meaningful anchor for Freehold Borough and the surrounding areas. For buyers, I wouldn't treat this as a reason to rush your decision or delay your decision. I would treat it as a long-term story worth paying attention to. Watch approvals, watch planning, watch updates, watch when shovels actually hit the ground. That's usually when things start getting real. All right, this next one actually caught my attention because I hear this problem from relocation buyers all the time. New Jersey Transit just launched a free on-demand shuttle called Microlink in parts of Monmouth County. And if you're a commuter, you need to know about this. The service currently covers zones in Manalapan, Marlboro, Freehold Township and Freehold Borough. And this isn't a traditional bus route. You book a ride through an app or by phone, and a shuttle comes to pick you up. Now, here's why this matters. One of the biggest questions I get from New York buyers relocating to towns like Marlboro, Manalapan, and Freehold is, how do I actually get to the park and ride? Because the reality is, a lot of suburban communities still involve a second car. This helps solve that problem, and that's meaningful. It makes these towns more commuter friendly than they were even a year ago. The program is currently a pilot program, and New Jersey Transit is monitoring how it performs. My personal opinion, if people use it, it expands. And frankly, I think people will. Now let's talk about Marlboro for a minute, because there is actually a lot happening there behind the scenes. Earlier this year, Marlboro Township approved multiple infrastructure projects totaling over $5 million. This actually matters for homeowners. We're talking road improvements, drainage, upgrades, sidewalks, park improvements. Work happening in some major corridors in Marlboro Township. Roads like School Road East, Beacon Hill, Bower Lane, Windcrest, plus drainage and stabilization work backed by outside funding from places like FEMA, Monmouth County, and the state. Here's why I think buyers should care about this. A town that's actively investing in roads, drainage, utilities, and long-term infrastructure is usually a town thinking about maintaining quality of life and protecting property values. Now, short-term, construction is going to be annoying. Detours, road work, temporary inconvenience. If you live near some of these projects, you'll probably feel it this year. But long-term, this is the type of investment many homeowners actually want to see happening in their town. Another thing worth mentioning is JCP&L. They recently completed a major grid upgrade affecting tens of thousands of homes across Marlboro, Holmdel, Aberdeen, Manalapan, Middletown, and surrounding communities. Stronger infrastructure, improved reliability. This is not flashy, but it's important. And some of the most important changes happening in a community are not always the most exciting headline stories. Now, before we get into some of the new construction communities in the area, I want to say something that I think every buyer coming into Monmouth County needs to hear. And this is especially for those buyers if they're relocating from out of state. Because you're not just picking a price point, you're picking a town. You're choosing a commute, you're choosing schools, you're choosing your daily lifestyle, and you need all of those pieces to work together. That's why I created my free Monmouth County relocation guide. I break down the different towns, the lifestyles, the differences, the commute options, considerations, school overviews, pricing, and how to narrow down where you should actually be looking based on your situation and budget. So if you're thinking about making a move here, I will put the link to my guide below. Now, let's talk about something I get asked about constantly, new construction. And I will tell you, in the primary towns I work in, new construction inventory is still very limited. The first new construction development I want to talk about is Renaissance Estates in West Freehold. This is a smaller luxury style community by D.R. Horton. It's located off Iron Bridge Road. And honestly, communities like this don't come around very often in Freehold Township. We're talking roughly 25 luxury single family homes. They're detached colonials offering 4 to 5 bedrooms, 2-car garages, open floor plans, full basements, and luxury upgrades. Pricing is currently starting around $1.2 million. Now, what makes this development notable isn't just the homes itself. It's the fact that opportunities for new construction in Freehold Township are extremely limited right now. Most of the single family inventory you're going to find in Freehold is resales, and they're built anywhere from the early 60s into the early 2000s. So if you're somebody who really wants new construction, modern layouts, newer systems, warranties, and less immediate maintenance, this is definitely one development to know about. Some of the homes in the development are already under contract, and closings are expected later this year. The next new construction community is Manalapan Grove. This is a brand new Lennar townhome community. These are 3-story townhomes with 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, open layouts, 2-car garages, decks, and some options for finished basements. Right now, pricing is roughly running in the $700,000 range, depending on the model. Now, one thing I think buyers should understand upfront about this community is that customization is pretty limited. You're not walking into a design center here picking out 50 different kitchen items. The finishes are more standardized. Every buyer is generally working from the same package. For some buyers, that's perfectly fine. For others, they may want more options. Another thing to know is that although it has a Manalapan mailing address, it's actually in the Englishtown section of Manalapan, very close to the Englishtown flea market. If I was trying to get into Manalapan today, this is a community I would consider. I've lived in Manalapan for years, and I say this all the time. I probably couldn't afford to buy my house today at today's prices. The reason I moved here back in 2010 was very intentional. I wanted the schools. I wanted the neighborhood feel. I wanted my kids growing up around other kids, sports, friendships, community. 16 years later, I'd make the same decision today. So when I show buyers in Manalapan, that perspective isn't theoretical for me. I've lived it, and communities like this can be a very realistic way for buyers to get into the town, the schools, the lifestyle without jumping into a much higher price point. Now, Manalapan isn't only about families with younger kids. The next community attracts a completely different buyer, and it has been one of the most talked about developments in the county, and that is Kay Hovnanian's Four Seasons at Manalapan Crossing. This is a 55-plus active adult community with roughly 280 homes planned. They're single-family homes. They offer multiple floor plans, modern finishes, and they have resort-style amenities: pool, fitness center, clubhouse, pickleball, tennis, bocce, the whole lifestyle package. Pricing currently starts in roughly the upper 800,000 range and can climb into the low 1 million depending on the model and upgrades. And this community is really appealing for buyers who want to stay in or near Monmouth County, close to family, close to the shore, close to everything they've built their lives around, but are ready for something newer and lower maintenance. I've actually helped clients purchase in this community, and one thing I can tell you is buyer demand here is strong. In fact, I recently had buyers considering a home here. They took some time to think through their decision, which is completely understandable, but when we went back a few weeks later, that same home they were interested in had increased by almost $100,000. That's exactly why I tell buyers, new construction pricing can move quickly. If something fits your lifestyle and your long-term plan, don't assume you have unlimited time to decide. I also created a full video and a blog post breaking down this development in more detail if you'd like a deeper dive. Now let's head over to Marlboro Township. Marlboro Trail is a luxury townhome community by Pulte Homes currently under construction. This one is geared towards a few different buyer profiles: downsizers, first-time home buyers, relocation buyers, and really anybody looking for newer, low-maintenance living in a highly desirable area. Pricing here starts in the upper 700,000 range and can approach the 900,000 range depending on upgrades and model selection. Here you'll find open layouts, 2-car garages, 3 bedrooms, and some models even offer first-floor primary suites. Location-wise, it's convenient to routes 520 and 79, and it's also close to the Henry Hudson Trail. Now, something I think buyers should understand about Marlboro is that large-scale new development opportunities have historically been somewhat limited. So communities like this don't pop up constantly. Because of that, they tend to attract attention. If you're looking for turnkey, newer construction without jumping into a much larger luxury single-family price point, this is definitely one worth checking out. I think this is a good point to say something I think every buyer should understand before starting their search in this market. These towns are competitive. Manalapan, Marlboro, Freehold Township. Good inventory in these towns, especially newer inventory, does not sit around forever. That doesn't mean rush. It doesn't mean panic, but it does mean understand the market you're stepping into. I've watched buyers take a wait and see approach, only to end up paying more later, settling for less, or missing the community they really wanted. My job isn't to pressure you, it's to help you understand the landscape so you can make the best decision for your family, your lifestyle, and your budget. All right, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about something that I think matters just as much as housing inventory, schools, or commute times, and that's lifestyle. Because at the end of the day, people are not buying square footage, they're buying a way of life. And if you really want to understand the heart of Western Monmouth County, you need to experience the Monmouth County County Fair. The fair takes place every summer at the East Freehold Showgrounds. And if you've never been, it's hard to explain until you actually experience it. It's live music, rides, food, vendors, 4-H exhibits, games, wildlife shows, home and garden competitions, families everywhere. It draws tens of thousands of people every year. And when relocation buyers ask me, what is Monmouth County actually like? This is one of the examples I always think of, because this is not some manufactured lifestyle amenity. This is a real community tradition. It's multi-generational, rooted in the agricultural history of the area, and it tells you something important about the personality of Western Monmouth County. When you're sitting there on a summer night listening to live music, watching kids run around, seeing neighbors and families out together, that's part of what people are buying when they choose communities like Freehold, Manalapan, Marlboro, and the surrounding towns. And speaking of the showgrounds, let's circle back for a minute to Park Stage, because this is where it gets really interesting for buyers looking at Freehold Township, the brand new outdoor concert venue I talked about earlier. This summer, it's bringing major music and comedy acts right into Freehold. And I think this matters more than people realize. One thing I hear sometimes from buyers relocating from New York or North Jersey is their concern that suburban living means giving something up culturally. And honestly, that's not really the reality here. Between Park Stage, Asbury Park, Red Bank, Count Basie, Stone Pony, there's actually a lot happening in this county, which brings me to Asbury Park. Because if you've never experienced Asbury Park, especially in the summer or early fall, it genuinely changes how a lot of buyers picture the Jersey Shore. Let's talk about See Here Now. This is a music, art, and surf festival held right on the Asbury Park waterfront. Music on the beach, art installations, surf competitions, food vendors, national headliners. Over the years, it has become one of the premier music festivals on the East Coast. But here's what I think matters from a lifestyle perspective. See Here Now tells buyers that Asbury Park is not just a seasonal beach town. It's a year-round cultural destination. It has personality, it has energy, it has history, it has its own identity. And buyers who spend time there often walk away with a completely different understanding of what shore living in Monmouth County can actually look like. And while we're talking about Asbury Park, we have to talk about the Stone Pony Summer Stage, because this is one of those things that buyers from outside New Jersey simply don't expect. A 6-month outdoor concert season at one of the most legendary music venues in the country. Think about this for a second. When you live here, access to live music, cultural events isn't something you plan a once-a-year trip around. It's just part of your life. You can go see a show after work, spend a summer evening in Asbury, make a night out of it. That's one of the things I find myself explaining a lot to relocation buyers. Living in Monmouth County doesn't mean you're trading culture for suburbia. You can absolutely have both. And the final thing I want to touch on, because I think it says something bigger about the county as a whole. America's 250th anniversary celebrations. Monmouth County is leaning into this in a big way, which honestly shouldn't surprise anybody considering the history here. This is where the Battle of Monmouth happened. And what I think is interesting isn't just the events themselves. It's the level of collaboration happening across towns, organizations, schools, art groups, and local communities. It tells you there's real civic pride here, real community investment, and that's not something you see everywhere. When I advise buyers, I always come back to this. Yes, the house matters, the schools matter, the commute matters, the numbers matter. Of course they do, but the community you're joining matters too, because you're not just buying a property. You're choosing where your daily life happens. You're choosing where your kids grow up, where your weekends happen, where your routines happen, where your memories happen. And that piece matters more than people sometimes realize. So here's my advice. Don't make this decision based on fear. Don't just stare at spreadsheets and price charts. Come visit, walk the towns, go to the events, spend time in the communities, and see how they actually feel. Because that experience tells you something that statistics never will. Whether you're thinking about relocating to Monmouth County, already live here, or just curious curious about what's changing in this area. I hope this video gave you a real picture of the momentum happening here right now. I'd love to hear from you and hear which development, community, or event you are most excited about. Drop it in the comments below. And if you're thinking about relocating to Monmouth County or even relocating out of the area and you'd like some advice from somebody who has been living and working here for years, feel free to reach out. You can call or text me anytime at 732-757-2522. I am always happy to help.